In this video, we will demonstrate how to use the name boundary tool in ORD in order to create full plan sheets. The first thing that we're going to do is go to the Home tab, go to your Attach Tools, and in your references here, we're going to attach whichever files that we want that will reflect on our cut plan sheets. And you'll see on this example that we have 3 files that are attached. So whenever it creates these sheets, those particular files will be attached also. Another thing that we're going to check is to make sure constructions is turned on, and that is because whenever it creates these clipping shapes along this alignment, in order for those shapes to show up, the constructions has to be turned on. That's just one of the attributes that we have it set to. So now if we're ready to cut the plan sheets, we're going to go ahead and go to the Drawing Production tab and go to the Name Boundary tool. Inside of here, we're going to select the Civil Plan. Next thing that we're going to select is this one that says Design D-Size Full Plan. And you'll see that we have one for Plan and one for Plan Profile, Plan View. We'll talk about those in separate videos. So we're just going to go ahead and select this one that says Design D-Size Full Plan. Next thing that we're going to do is give it what scale that you want these sheets to be. You can make them a 5 scale, 10 scale, whatever scale that is supported. So now if we come over here, we're just, for this example, we're going to use the 50 scale. You can give it whatever name for these cut plan sheets. The first one, of course, be named Plan 1. The next one will be named Plan 2, and so forth. You can name those however you want. The actual name of this right here is going to be the group name, and that's usually going to be from the alignment that you select, or from whichever element. And we'll just leave that as is. We can give it a start location, a stop location, and we'll come back to those here in a little bit. This through here, the length, the left offset, the right offset, the boundary chord, do not mess with those. If you mess with those, that's going to mess up your cut plan sheet whenever it gets created. Because you'll see here, whenever we change our detail scale from 1 to 50 to 1 to 100, you're going to see these change. They're going to change accordingly. So don't mess with these numbers after you've selected your scale that you want. Your overlaps, if you want your shapes to overlap a certain distance, that's where that would come into effect. For this example, we're not going to worry about it. Now, once I have this ready to be placed, it's going to say to identify your path, and I will select the alignment, and you'll see on the end of your cursor now, you're going to see a line, and that's going to be the start location. And this is where you can come in and put in a start location and a stop location. I'm just going to dynamically place my shapes out there. So I'll start at the very beginning, left click, and you'll see that we have our shapes that are being defined. If you do need to change the scale for some reason, say you instead of 1 to 50 you want to be 1 to 20, you can change it, and of course it's going to change your clipping shapes accordingly before you place it. For this example, I'm going to do to 1 to 50. And you'll see as I come down through here, it's placing those accordingly. And once we're ready to place it, we'll left click to accept it. And one more left click. And now we see that we have our clipping shapes that are out there. Whenever we use that tool, one toggle I forgot to mention is I had this toggle right here unchecked. And we're going to come back to that right now. So once those shapes are created, I can come back to this tool and this little icon right here, and I can go to my groups here, which is Route 54, that's the group name, and then here's our cut plan sheets. And why I didn't cut them beforehand is I can come in here and actually move these shapes if I needed to before I actually produce the cut plan sheets. So if I didn't like this and I want to move it a little bit and move this one up or down a little bit, I can do that before it actually creates the sheets. So now if I'm ready to create the sheets, all I need to do is turn on this toggle that says Show the Create Drawing dialog, and I will right click over this group of 54, and I will select the Create Named Drawing. Inside of here, the name, we'll leave it as is. The only one that you really should have to tweak inside of here is this scale right here for your drawing model. And I will change that to 1 to 50. That way it sets it to 1 to 50 for each one of those sheets. Because the way the tool works, this name boundary tool, is it actually creates a drawing model and also a sheet model, which a drawing model is normally designed to have notes and details in it, and then the sheet model is just an output from your default model and your drawing model. Because the way Bentley has this tool set up is in your default, like what we're in right here, our default model, that's where you'd put all your plan graphic stuff. And then in your drawing model, that's where they want you to put like your details like notes, dimensioning, text, other miscellaneous stuff that really doesn't need to go on the default model. And then of course the sheet model will be the one that has the border around it, and it just has this information basically referenced into it. So basically the sheet model is just the output from whatever you have in the drawing model or the default model. So inside of here I'm just going to change this to 1 to 50. I shouldn't have to tweak anything else. I will come back to this one right here later on, which this one here, it will actually output these into separate DGN files. For this example, I'm just going to place them inside of this file, and then I'll come back to that at the very end. So now if we're ready to produce the sheets, I will go ahead and click on OK. And it may take a little bit of time. You'll notice down in your status bar, it's going through there and creating the drawing models and also the sheet models. And then once it's all said and done, you'll see that we have this sheet that was created. And this is the very last one. So if I go back up to my home pull down, or if I go back to my home tab, and I go to my models, you'll see inside my models here I have 3 separate sheets. I got sheet 3, 2, and 1. If I go to sheet 1, you'll see that it looks like this. You'll see it's been clipped out accordingly like it should be. If I go to sheet 2, that's inside of here also. So that's kind of your clipping shapes from your default model that's out there. Now I also mentioned that it creates a drawing model. So if I go to the drawing model, that's what this looks like right here. Basically the clipping shape, mask out everything outside of it. And basically if you want to add some other stuff inside of here, like a certain notes or text or whatever else that you want that really doesn't reflect or need to be on this default sheet, that's where you would add that particular information to. And just to kind of demonstrate that, I'll just come up here and use the drawing tool here, and I will just come up here and place text, and I'll just place some text in here. Not quite the scale that I want, I'm just kind of dynamically placing it. Let's put this on 0.1. That looks good. Just to kind of show you what it's doing. So we have that. Now if I go back into my actual sheet model of sheet number 1, you'll see that that text reflects inside of there. But it's not in my default model, which would be in this area right here. So that's what those drawing models are designed for. Let's go back to one of the sheets. And you'll see inside the sheet here, of course, it clips it out to whatever shape that we have defined, so we're good to go there. The only thing that you would really need to do inside of your sheet model is to add your title block information, which we'll talk about that in a separate video. But that should be the only thing that you need to add inside this sheet. You should not have to add any geometry or any text, dimensions, or whatever inside of here. And it will not be supported also. So that's how to cut full plan sheets in ORD. Now I did mention that if I go back to my default model here, and if I go up to my drawing production and I'll go to my named boundary. I can come in here and produce those again if I wish. And for this example here, I will check mark this box that says 1 sheet per DGN file. So to output those into separate DGN files. And of course, I'll go ahead and change my annotation scale to 1 to 50 inside of my drawing models. That way I don't have to do it after the fact. And now if I'm ready to create those into separate DGN files, I will go ahead and click on OK. And like I said, it may take a little bit of time because it's going to go through there and actually create separate drawings and separate sheet models and create separate files for each one of those. So basically you'll have a file that has a drawing model and a sheet model, and then the next file will have a drawing model and sheet model accordingly. And then once it's done, I would just go ahead and click on the update server copy for this one. And I will go ahead and check in those files. And you'll see that it brought me into sheet number 6, plain sheet number 6. So kind of be aware of that whenever you're doing it into separate sheets. It will actually open the last file that's being created and prompt you to check in those other sheets. So now if we come back in here, if we go to our home tab, go to the models, we see that we have a drawing model and also we have a sheet model, which is the sheet model that we're in. If we go to the drawing model, we see that we have that information here attached. And basically all this information right here, it's just referenced, or excuse me, it's using that information from that previous sheet. That information is referenced in. That's basically what's going on. And of course you could add geometry to here if you want to add something else, and it would come in here and reflect on your sheet model, which is this one right here. So that's how to actually produce them into separate sheets if you want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and go back I'm going to go back into my other sheet, which is this one right here, my test one. I will check this one in to save it. Now once these shapes are out here, I can actually come in here and move that shape if I wanted to maybe gain some extra coverage or to maybe get some other information. So let's say like this shape right here, let's say I want to grab a little bit more of this information right in here, or maybe even this one here. I can grab this shape and just kind of demonstrate that. Let me go back to my, let's say sheet number 1. Okay, and you see that information right through here. And if we go to sheet number 2, you see that information through here. So now if I come back and go to my default, let's say for this example I want to grab a little bit more of this roadway, and maybe this one here I want to pull it down a little bit farther. So if I grab this shape, I can actually move it, and I could probably use my Civil AccuDraw or AccuDraw to get it with precision, but I'm just going to dynamically do it for this example. And I will pull that down just a little bit, and I will pull this one over a little bit like this, and maybe this last one I'll change it just a little bit too, just to kind of show you what it's going to do. Now if I go back into my other sheets, it should automatically reflect. So if I go back into my sheet number 1, you'll see that additional information through there, Or if I go to sheet number 2, we should see a little bit more of that intersection, which is this right down through here. And then also sheet number 3, that should update accordingly. Let's see if we go back to sheet number 2. It looks like this. And if we go to our actual drawing model, or excuse me, go to our default model, you see that it got that information through here. So anytime that you move these shapes, it'll reflect to your other drawings. So you can manipulate them a little bit.